Right guys, welcome back. Competitiveness. Are you competitive? Do you like competitiveness? Are you one who's trying to get up ahead? Or are you one of those who says, well, I like to take part, but I don't really, I don't want to be competitive.
It's the taking part that counts.
It's the taking part that counts. And I get that. My background is in sports and competitive sports. My idea with competitiveness is that if you're playing the game and you know the game and you play by the rules of the game, you've got to learn to win and lose. But if the game is football and the goal is to score more goals than the other, I want to play the game to try and score more goals. I want to judge how I'm performing and I judge it whether I won or lost, and I learn something and I'm coming back for more whether I win or lose. I don't quite get in modern day society how we can be non-competitive when we are living in a competitive world.
I think, talking about competitiveness, when I think about my happiest memories at school, it was winning the egg and spoon race every year when I was at first school.
Yeah, but someone else didn't win. So that competitiveness also meant someone else lost.
I lost plenty of times as well, but I also...
But only one person can win. So the non-competitive viewpoint is that should we celebrate that person who came first, second, third, but what about the other 5 who participated? And what about the one who never gets to win? So, which I get that element if we're trying to be fair, but also sometimes that person who is not going to win the egg and spoon race thrives in another area. It might be academics, it might be that they can do the high jump or something. So do they get a chance to celebrate then? And do we run the risk of not being able to celebrate success or competitiveness? Or do we also run the risk, I think the worst thing, do we run the risk of actually not learning how to lose and how to dust ourselves off? Because we all know a few people who can cruise through, especially when it comes to school and school sports. They cruise through at their local school, then they go to a bigger school, and now they're not the best. And they really battle with how do I now deal with
the big fish, little ponds.
Exactly. So I think people miss either with school sports or club sports and that. I think you can still take part. I think you can not be too worried about the result. But as you play sport, you're competitive. And then when you go into business or you go into an interview, you want that job, you want that promotion, you've got to be competitive. I think we live in a competitive world, so I don't know whether we ever really get non-competitive.
I think we live in a competitive world, but we're worried about offending people because we don't want to say you're not good enough. When essentially everyone is amazing and the best in the world at doing one certain thing in a certain way.
Yeah.
No one can do what I can do. No one can do what you can do the way you do it, the way I do it, because there's only us as an individual. Now, people get offended over these things of, well, they won, there's a loser. And yeah, that's the case. If there's a winner, there's got to be a loser. However, that winner, as you said, who's great at sports, may not win that maths meet-up and the spelling contest and all these different things. I think it's finding what someone's strength is and the best teachers.
And being able to celebrate, but also I think the key is to then to win or lose properly. Mm-hmm. So the worst is someone says, well, I win, and in your face, I beat you. There's no place. That's not competitiveness. That's just poor manners. And that happens in adults. We're not talking about kids. I've seen it in club sports and in business and that, in your face. That's not competitiveness. Competitiveness to me is that inner drive to want to do better, succeed or not succeed, and analyze it, and then want to do better, and then prove myself or someone proves themselves against either their peers or against the opposition, but with respect in that. Competitiveness is not being an arse.
Did you see how Lewis Hamilton won the Bahrain Grand Prix?
Yeah, I mean...
That was amazing. And that was a show of...
When he was on the radio after, his first thing was like, geez, I really, But he could quite easily go, great, and then also reflect. Did you see? He says, these guys are up there. We've got work to do.
There's respect.
Straight away, he identified that he won, but he was actually not that competitive on the day.
And also, how there's such a great rivalry between Hamilton and Vettel. And mentioning that documentary again that we mentioned in the podcast last week about the visualization, and it brought over the highlight of how close that rivalry was, and the media just put it into massive rivalry just mode that they hated each other.
It fuels the sport, doesn't it?
They had that rivalry. They both wanted to win, but they're both champions in their own right.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the season, when Alonso had his last race, Vettel came along, Hamilton came along, and they started doing donuts at the end of the circuit. 3 amazing champions, greatest of all time in their own way, in their own right, of each driver.
But they wouldn't be able to push themselves
They had to be
and
competitive.
push the teams to develop that technology, to develop that level of performance without competitiveness.
Exactly.
But someone else's competitiveness would be just to be able to get to become an F1 driver. They're never going to be world champion. They may not attract the team, or they might get a chance to. But I think competitiveness gets a bad name because I think it's mixed with poor sportsmanship, with poor morals and poor ethics and poor behaviour, really. And I'm not really keen on when it's bounced around as that we don't want to be competitive. I think more go the other way, but know what competitiveness is.
And also it's competitiveness of knowing where you're at and being able to push yourself forward as an individual.
Because I think the competitiveness really is actually, it's more about you. It's more about you as an individual, of how do you, and then that person who doesn't win, can they brush themselves off? Can they learn from that experience and win at some stage? Or can that person who wins suddenly loses? How do they dust themselves off? If you look at all the ones who we perceive in sport or business who have achieved, they failed. You know, you look at sportsmen.
Look at Michael Jordan.
You look at Michael Jordan. You look at Richard Branson. You look at the business tycoons. They are seen as multimillionaires, but most of them have been bankrupt at some stage. It's gone bang. But their motivation hasn't been to be a multimillionaire. It's because they've driven by, and competitiveness within themselves drives that. It's not trying to beat someone else. They're usually driving themselves.
They want to be the best, but they want to be the best by building up their own skyscraper, the tallest, rather than ripping down everyone else's.
Yeah. So my question is, as a society, should we be encouraging the right competitiveness within society to learn the morals and the ethic and the values and the principles with that, and therefore encouraging that? Or should we be stepping back and saying we want to be non-competitive and we want to, how do we then encourage people to go for a job interview? And I think as a society, we've got competitiveness mixed up with poor behaviour, poor moral judgment, and
but what are the health implications of it as well? Considering we're recording this
from a health perspective, I think it's huge, because if you're then not encouraging people to learn and grow and develop, how do they adapt? How do they adapt stresses? How do they analyze their health? How do they be proactive? And how it dumbs down society. It means that I don't know anything, so I'll just follow whatever you tell me. I'm open to influence. I'm open to marketing, persuasion. It's huge. How do we manage stress? We talk about stress.
I think it adds more stress not being competitive than being competitive, which is actually, people are going to think that's the reverse. But if we settle for where we're currently at, we're never going to move forward. And if we are competitive with ourselves, to push ourselves to be better and better, part of that being better improves our health. And if we're not pushing ourselves to be better, to get fitter, to run for longer, to run faster, to run more with more form, with better form, then we're just happy just waddling and being slower and slower. Yeah. Before you know it, you're like, I feel a little bit tired. I'm not going to take the extra road. I'm going to cut this road back home. So you're not getting the steps in. Your heart rate doesn't get improved, and you don't push forwards.
You've got in life, I think, you've got what I call the actives and the passives. And the passives aren't going to be competitive. They're not pushing. They're not trying to. They all sit back and things either get done for them. But they're also the same ones who will then sit on the stands and want their sports team to be the
ones
best.
That...
But they're not investing in themselves to be their best. The proactive is the one saying, how can I take control? How can I invest myself? And that is competitive in themselves. I think those skills come through of trying to be better, and I think it comes from childhood and above. So
I'm pretty certain that most of the people that push their health forward, that invest in themselves and their health, will have much more of a competitive streak than the people that are happy to sit back on the armchair and know exactly what that defender should have done when that person was not caught in the offside trap and they scored a goal.
And to reiterate, I mean to be competitive and advance themselves, but not by stepping on someone else.
Yeah.
It's about them and that.
It's exactly what I said there, and it's a quote from Gary Vaynerchuk, how he says about too many entrepreneurs want to build the biggest skyscraper by tearing everyone else's down.
Yeah,
but we're talking about building the biggest skyscraper by building the biggest skyscraper.
Yeah. So we have within our area, we have a group of chiropractors who we work together as a partnership. It's not a financial partnership; it's a supportive partnership. And the main premise of that is that we work together, and so we have had from other sectors, other businessmen, not within chiropractic per se, saying, you work with your competitors, you're in competition with them. It's like, there's no competition. The competition is within ourselves, and we use and we support, we share ideas, and all of our practices benefit from it. Because we don't come from a period of a situation of lack, we come from abundance. And so it's that collective competitiveness drives us, but we're not trying to outdo each other. We're actually doing the opposite. We want to see all of us thrive together.
It's the same in the fitness world, in the health world, where, well, I say it's the same. There's a certain population that seem to knock each other down, and I hated that because people used to get onto Facebook and they would argue with each other on what gram of protein was the right gram, and they would be turning away clients and scaring them off. When if we can support each other, and I'm in a network now of amazing individuals that know that there's 7 billion people on this earth. I can't help everyone.
No,
but I can help others, and they can help me to help more people. You need
help with other people too, like mine. And I think that's where the misconception with competitiveness comes, is that there is that competition, and competitiveness can be negative. People can become competitive by standing on someone else's shoulders to push them down to seem that they are better. And that is the next. So I get when then people want to say, we don't want competitors, we're going to do non-competitive approaches. I get that. But I think that's the key is to identify the right tools and the right way to do it, rather than to step away from all competitiveness, because it's out there. We praise it, every Sky Sports thrives on it. You know, we tune into it every week.
Yeah, the Gary versus Jamie Carragher debates and everything.
Yeah. So competitiveness. How competitive are you? Are you competitive? You play by the game, or are you one of the ones who's saying, I don't think we need to be competitive. We all need to be equal. And I get that to work together, but competitiveness is the key. Non-competitive sports day versus competitive sports day. Non-competitive academics versus non-competitive interviews. How do you choose the right candidate for your job? It's not about school, it's about society. Are we competitive or are we non-competitive?
If you're not competitive, now, one thing which I look at with clients, just to finish off here, is that it's not necessarily about moving a mountain, about changing the world, or even changing your life all at once, but just try this. If you don't feel better by improving something by 1% every single day, then, well, you're going to feel better. I don't really have a good analogy to back that up, but push yourself forward 1% every single day and you will feel much, much better. And realise that it is kind of cool to be competitive with yourself, to move yourself forward and develop yourself.
As always, I think it is about self. Mm-hmm. That's where it starts and that's where it ends. Have a great week. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.